Hi, so welcome to this DJ Masterclass. My name is Declan McGlynn. And for those not familiar, this is Point Blank's Masterclass. Point Blank is an electronic music production school and DJ school based in London, Mumbai, LA, online, and of course right here in Ibiza too. So all of you IMS delegates, you can get 10% off at the Ibiza school. So go on pointblankmusicschool.com and you'll find out a lot more about our courses and how you guys can get that discount. So today we are joined, as Pete said very eloquently, by Ant's resident. We're going to take a little bit look at how he DJs with 4 decks. We're going to give you guys a chance to ask some questions if you've got any questions about his setup. So please give it up for Andrea Oliva. Yeah. How's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
Very good. So before we get into all the technical stuff, I just wanted to start by asking you some questions about your background in DJing. So how did you first start DJing and why did you first start?
Well, that was like 25 years ago. I was spending almost all my Sundays in my uncle's studio, and I was flashed, by the sounds. They had a lot of synthesizers, a lot of drum machines. And back in my village in Switzerland, where I was living with 3-4 cows, me and some older friends, and they were like DJing, and they introduced me into the art, of DJing, mixing one record into the other. And yeah, as I said, I was flashed by the sound. I was flashed by, the art, how you can mix 2 records and, basically let it sound like one, the whole energy and dynamic you have in the mixes, the music, the power. So yeah, since then, I'm captured.
Yeah. So you mentioned you came from a small town. I mean, how did you first learn? And where did that kind of desire to learn come from? Was there any kind of person in your life who was like your DJ idol at the time?
Well, yeah, coming from Switzerland, we were very focused on the German scene. Of course, people like Cosmic Baby, Anthony Rotter, Sven Väth, were our big idols, And also I bought first Hard House records and Frankfurt Beat, really everything coming from Germany was the big thing. So yeah.
You were mixing. What was your setup like at the time?
That was 2 belt drive turntables and
no pitch control.
Pitch control. Yeah, but you needed to have arms like this to control, and a Newmark mixer which had basically just 2 faders, bass, mids, and gain. Very simple, but yeah.
So how important do you think it is to start on, considering what you're using now and how you started? How important is it to start with the best equipment? Can you learn on something quite basic?
Well, nowadays the equipments are very advanced. You're able to do a lot of things, but back then you were just focused on basic stuff. You were focused on really beat matching records and being focused on the essential things, which is mixing the records, And now you have effects, you have loops, you have, effect machines, and. But I think it's very important to start with basic equipment, and then just take the next step, Yeah.
So don't forget the fundamentals at the heart of what you're doing, even if it is 4 decks and lots of equipment. So that's your advice, just don't get too excited, don't run before you can walk.
No, well, technology nowadays, it makes everything very easy. It's almost putting an autopilot, and it just runs by itself. And I like to work, I like to loop and mix 2 records and acapellas and, so yeah, I think the busier you are while you're DJing, the more you enjoy it.
Yeah, definitely. So how did your setup evolve from those 2 decks to what it is now?
It was watching people like Eric Morillo, for example. He technically he always was a genius. He was looping acapellas and but also people like Lil Vega. It was very innovative what they did. It was almost like a live act, but they basically used, all this equipment. They use it like an instrument, like a whole instrument, and yeah, I like that.
So shall we take a look at how you do your thing?
Why not?
Let's do it.
So. I don't use record books because
Really?
I like
Wow.
it chaotic.
Don't tell Pioneer that.
So I like the challenge. It's like going through. Your record case. So let me check here.
grooves you and moves you, takes you to a place where you want to be, you want to feel yourself, makes you bob your head, makes you get in the mood. It's alright if you don't feel it, but I do. It's what I call underground house music. Yeah.
Nice one, man. Cool, amazing. So there's a lot going on here. We'll try and get through as much as we can. Do you want to just start by explaining how the 4 decks actually work with the sends and returns in the RMX?
Well, yeah, the RMX is plugged through send and return. I use it on the aux 1 channel, just because, I like to fade in like...
So what exactly, just for anyone who doesn't know,
snares
what
and
exactly
clips.
does the RMX do, and how does the send and return work?
Well, this is like... this machine here, for me, it's like a lifesaver when I play festivals. Because I don't play with computer, and the guys who use Tractor, they have a lot of effects, white noise and, drum rolls and reverb. So, yeah, I use this basically, as silly as it sounds, like to make noise,
Yeah.
Sometimes you play records which doesn't have the impact you expect. So this one just adds, something more,
Yeah.
And as you saw, I like to loop. I like to loop parts of the track, which basically all the parts which have like just drum elements, and that's why I can like have like 3 channels up, and you don't have like melodies, crossing each other or vocal on vocals, So yeah, this is what I do.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that because, you must have to know your records so well, especially when there's multiple records playing, when the drop is going to come, when to filter, when a vocal comes in, especially if they might be out of key. Do you prepare everything in advance? So
Well,
that
no,
everything's
the thing is,
match?
I woke up too late this morning. So I just, I had some promos checked yesterday, so yeah. I like to do like freestyle, when I don't like mathematics too much. So for me, knowing every part of a record, you miss like surprise moments. So I like to make it up like, freestyle and
So you
just
don't-
do it the way I feel it,
Yeah, yeah. And you mentioned you don't use record box. How do you playlist your music?
Well, I think for me, it's like being a bit chaotic. It's also a part of being creative, because you have to dig for records, and I never know which record I'm gonna play after the other. So I really have to go through all the tracks, and try to find the right one. And I like this process while I'm DJing, because it gets me like, especially when you play in front of a crowd. It's like it's challenging. Yeah, it's challenging. So that's why if I would have like record box, everything would be like very clean and clear, and as I said, like mathematic. Everything in its right place. It's like in the studio, for example, I like to do mistakes, and by mistakes you create something. And for me, working in this chaotic environment, it's creative for me. Yeah.
And when a track starts to drift, and with 4 tracks playing, which jog wheel do you go for? Especially because it becomes like a sonic mash of just sound rather than this track and this track playing together.
Yeah.
Is it hard to know which one is looping, which one's about to drop, which one's drifting out?
Well, no, I think with the time you have it, you just feel it. It's really a question of feelings, rather than like knowing which part is coming in the track. And it's also it's different when you play to a crowd. You have to read the moment, you have to read the situation. You have to see which tracks are working. And when I get to the club, I always check out the crowd and the situation and what the guy before me plays. And so I just make it up on the spot, really. Yeah.
I guess that's when it's all about experience in those situations, isn't it? It's just knowing your equipment and knowing your music and just feeling the vibe.
Yeah, the more experienced you are, the more risks you take. Probably like 10 years ago, if I had to come here and didn't even know what to play, I wouldn't loop stuff. If I wouldn't have like monitors here, and I would freak out. But the more gigs you play, the more you learn. I think learning is the most important thing, even for, even for big names. It's like every time you play in a club or a festival, it's different. And you can learn from every situation. And the more experience you have, the more secure you are, and the more you take risks. And by taking risks, you become yourself. You have an identity, and this is what's the most important at the end of the day. Because there is a lot of DJs nowadays. You walk through Playa d'Embossa, and if you would ask like 10 guys, 7 would tell you they are DJs, So it's really important to be original, to be yourself. So I think, yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's also about, especially if you're a resident, you're playing 4 times a week.
Yeah.
You have to entertain yourself as well. It has to be fun, keep being fun for you, and the crowd pick up, and when you're enjoying it too.
Well, I was a resident. I had residencies when I was like 14. I wouldn't even be allowed to get into the club, and I always played warm-up sets, which was the most important for my career because it made me read the crowd very well. You have to read you have to create the vibe as a warm-up DJ, and I think that was very important in my career because once you play main time slots, you know what to do. Instead of nowadays maybe you put out a record, it's a big hit, but you have no experience when you DJ, and then people feel, okay, there's a difference between putting out bomb records and being like a solid DJ. Yeah.
Do you think that line is becoming too blurred these days between producer and DJ?
Well, the thing is, well, in our kind of music, house and techno, it's a bit less. But like for EDM guys, as I said before, technology nowadays it makes everything so easy. So producing a track is easier than it used to be. So if you're lucky, you end up having like a club hit, and then all of a sudden you get thrown into the whole DJ thing, and you play in front of a big crowd, and it's not the same. If you're experienced, you know what to do.
So if that did happen to someone at Point Blank or someone in this room, what would be your advice to someone if it was one of their early gigs and they had to be thrown into the deep end?
Well, practice. Yeah, I used to practice at home. For me, like mixing, having 2 record beat matched, and properly. And for me, it was like scoring a goal for a footballer. I was like 2 channels up, and wow, I think practicing is the most important thing. Yeah, in the beginning, and the more you practice, the more you get to know your gear, the more you know what to do in certain situations. Because it's not just playing one record after the other. It's like building an atmosphere. And for me, the most important thing is making people dance. And sometimes it's not just by playing records, it's by working records and mixing records, and yeah.
So how do new DJs avoid the pitfalls of allowing the technology to do it for them? Because obviously it is very easy these days, as you said before,
yeah.
And it's not the new DJ's fault. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
So how do you avoid falling into the trap of keeping it simple because you can?
Yeah, it's because it keeps you busy, and the busier you are while you DJ, the more focused you are, and the more concentrated you are. The more, it's like I'm here. As I said, I'm here to make people dance. So I have to make the best out of it. I'm not the one who does crazy dance moves behind the booth and entertain.
They're pretty good, though.
And entertain the people like this. I really try to communicate with the crowd through the music, and not through my Michael Jackson moves, So I think I also don't use, like, for example, the sync button, because it would be again, it would be too mathematic. I think beat matching is one thing, but having the freaking record on the same keynote, having the record on when it's too perfect, it's too clean. And house and techno, it's not clean, you know. So, yeah.
Yeah. And what do you think, I mean, in the terms of the way the DJ scene is now, you said there's 7 out of 10 DJs implying Mbassa. I mean...
Maybe.
I don't know, maybe 8.
Exaggerate.
How would you... I mean, what would you say to someone who did want to stand out, rise above the noise, stand out in the club?
Just be yourself. I think the most important thing is not listening to what people say or not being too worried what people could think. Just do your own thing. And by doing your own thing, you arrive at the point where you are you. And, you know, for example, people like Seth Troxler, you know, he is himself really, because he plays a small club. He plays a kind of music which he's playing in front of 10,000 people, you know. So it's him. And having your own identity can get you far.
Nice one. So if you guys want to immerse yourself in DJing and put in those 10,000 hours, you can take a course right here on the island at Point Blank, and of course in London, LA, Mumbai, and online. And they're for beginner and advanced, so don't be too afraid to get in touch. So one more time, Andrea Oliva.
Thank you.